The dining room was illuminated by a graceful chandelier, casting a soft glow over the table. Despite this, the atmosphere felt chilly. "What do you mean Emily is going to take over the company?" I inquired, my voice steady though my fists clenched beneath the table. Richard Caldwell, my father and the man whose company I had once rescued from the brink of collapse, barely looked up from his steak as he spoke. "Lauren, let's be practical," he sighed, making it sound as if he was explaining something simple to a child. "You're talented with technical details, but leadership isn't your strong suit. We need someone who holds authority, someone who commands respect. Your sister is perfect for the role." Emily, clad in her designer outfit, sat opposite me with a sly smile while leisurely sipping her wine. She had done nothing to assist when Caldwell Enterprises was on the verge of bankruptcy. Yet now, with the business thriving and posting unprecedented profits, she was being granted everything. "I created the software that saved this company," my voice now edged with disbelief, cutting through the sound of clattering silverware. "Without it, there wouldn't even be a business to hand down." Dad found my words amusing, chuckling as he reached into his wallet to retrieve a crumpled bill, casually tossing it onto the table. "For your effort," he said. I fixed my gaze on the $50 bill resting between my dinner plate and untouched wine glass. $50 for the countless late nights I toiled, eyes burning from writing code, for the endless weeks spent scrutinizing financial reports, for designing a system that not only rescued us from insolvency, but also propelled us to industry leadership. $50 for the innovation that transformed Caldwell Enterprises from an obsolete relic into a $300 million empire. Mom shifted uneasily in her chair, glancing at me, but she remained silent. No one else spoke. I looked at Dad, the man I once revered, the man I had spent my life striving to make proud. In that moment, I realized it wasn't about merit. It was never about effort, success, or loyalty. It was about control. "I see," came my quiet response as I picked up the $50 bill, turned it over in my fingers, and then calmly folded it into my napkin before standing. "Lauren, stop being dramatic," Dad scoffed, dismissing me with a wave. I smiled slightly. "I'm not being dramatic. I'm excusing myself. Clearly, my role in this family is nothing more than a background character, so I'll remove myself from the scene." Emily let out a soft chuckle, barely concealing her amusement as I left the dining room, my heels echoing against the marble floor. I didn't slam the door, nor did I shout or demand fairness. I simply left. The next morning, I was at work early as usual. Over the last year, the office had transformed. Where there had been whispers of layoffs and department heads resigning, now there was a thriving landscape fueled by my software's impact on the logistics industry. It automated processes that once took weeks, enabling global expansion and securing top-tier clients. Yet, something felt different as I moved through the lobby. I noticed nervous glances, conversations pausing as I passed by. Reaching my office, I found the door already open. Inside, my desk was cleared, my computer was gone, and the nameplate that had read Lauren Caldwell, CTO, was missing. Emily was comfortably seated in my chair, perusing some documents. She looked up with a bright yet artificial smile. "Oh, good morning, Lauren. Didn't Dad inform you? I'll be occupying this office now. You'll be reporting to me." My stomach churned, but outwardly I stayed composed. "What is my new position?" I asked, voice unwavering. Emily tilted her head thoughtfully, then shrugged. "We'll find something, perhaps IT support?" "IT support? At the very company I had saved." She smirked. "Dad suggested you take some time off, relax, maybe work on hobbies. Don't worry, you'll remain involved in some way." I inhaled slowly, my heart pounding in my ears. After everything I had done, every late night, every strategic solution, I was being phased out like an afterthought, as if I was worth a mere $50. I looked at Emily, then at the Caldwell Enterprises logo on the glass walls. A name once synonymous with family, loyalty, and legacy, now reeked of betrayal. But I didn't argue. I didn't resist. I simply nodded, understood. Then I turned and walked out. They thought they had won. They thought they had silenced me. but they had no idea what lay ahead. I departed the office with my head held high, a steady pulse. They believed they had buried me. They thought I would vanish quietly, not realizing what retribution awaited. As the elevator doors closed behind me, I couldn't shake off one single thought. Watch me. They might have pleaded for me to stay, but I decided to make my exit. The next morning, I was present at work as usual, seated at the tiny desk in the building's farthest corner. The interns around me were unaware of who I truly was, yet I chose not to resist or argue. Observing in silence, it took me less than a week to comprehend the situation. Emily was overwhelmed. She lacked the skills to manage a company, especially one that had blossomed into a multi-million-dollar empire. Her days were filled with endless meetings, decisions made on intuition rather than data. She dismissed experienced department heads, replacing them with friends whose expertise was limited to pairing wine and cheese. The company was teetering on collapse, undoing everything I had built. I resolved to move on and create something superior. Late one evening, I convened in a coffee shop with three of the most brilliant individuals I've collaborated with: Jake, our former CFO who had revitalized our financial strategies; Maya, the exceptional data analyst who had architected our customer profiling system; and David, the lead engineer who knew our software inside out because we had co-developed it under caffeine and determination. They had all voluntarily resigned recently, reading the signs. "Lauren," Jake addressed me seriously, "what's our move?" I unveiled a folder detailing what I'd been crafting in secrecy. "We're building something new," I simply declared. No persuasion was necessary. They were fully committed. Emily and my father had forgotten one detail: the software. Though legally owned by Caldwell Enterprises, I had authored the initial code long before its company implementation. The latest version, with cutting-edge features, was never uploaded to their servers. It remained mine. Over the next month, I honed it into a faster, stronger version. I pitched it not to Caldwell Enterprises but their rivals, securing 3 offers within weeks. By month's end, a $50 million contract was finalized, positioning me to outmaneuver Caldwell Enterprises. The first warning signs for my father's firm were small: a long-term client suddenly severing ties, then another and another. Emily was in distress, demanding answers and impulsively firing staff, yet the stark truth lay bare: the industry had progressed. My perfected software now drove competitor systems, leaving Caldwell Enterprises obsolete while I merely began my ascent. 6 months later, I sat inhabiting a luxury hotel ballroom, savoring champagne as the keynote speech concluded at the Tech Innovators Gala, an illustrious event attracting CEOs, investors, and executives. This year, I was the honored guest. As they announced my name, I approached the stage, my heels resonating against the refined floor. "Tonight we honor the trailblazers advancing our industry," the host declared. Lauren Caldwell, visionary behind the most innovative logistics software today, is transforming global corporate operations. Her company, Nova Systems, now assessed at over $500 million. The applause was thunderous. Scanning the audience, my gaze met a familiar face: my father, seated beside Emily. Their once thriving company now teetered on bankruptcy, a fact they both acknowledged. I beamed, not out of malice or vengeance, but pride in having triumphed independently. They had imbued me with a lesson. I required no external validation. I succeeded on my terms, unable to be thwarted. Exactly 1 year had elapsed since the mortifying dinner, where my father discarded a crumpled $50 bill, deeming me inadequate, and my sister knowingly smirked, undeservingly bestowed control. 1 year since I walked away without dispute, only to chart my path anew. As I sat at the top seat of the Nova Systems conference table, carefully going over our latest quarterly figures, a small smile tugged at the corners of my mouth. Revenue was at $320 million, with our market share climbing to 48%. Caldwell Enterprises was in dire straits. Having systematically dismantled their once formidable advantages, their clients had abandoned them. Their stock had crashed, and their precarious financial state was confirmed when their latest reports were leaked just a week earlier. Just as predicted, at exactly 10 a.m., My assistant buzzed into my office. "Lauren, your father and sister are here to see you." I leaned back and sighed, realizing this moment had finally arrived. "Let them in." Their entrance was haunting. Emily's designer outfits failed to hide the fatigue in her eyes, and my father, always the epitome of composure, appeared older and beaten. They had come because they had lost and knew it. "Lauren," my father began, his voice measured. "We need to talk." I gestured to the chairs across my desk, and though they hesitated, possibly because this was the first time they were entering my domain, they eventually sat. Emily seemed uneasy, her nails tapping nervously on the armrest, avoiding my eyes. "Look," Dad sighed, "we've had our differences, but ultimately we're family. Caldwell Enterprises is struggling. We need your help." There it was. I let the silence stretch, watching them squirm uncomfortably before I finally spoke. "What exactly are you asking me to do?" Dad leaned in, trying to sound sincere. "We're willing to offer you a leadership role, something substantial. I realize now that we may have underestimated you." I tilted my head. "You realize now?" Emily finally looked up with a tense expression. "Lauren, don't be petty. We need you, okay?" I chuckled softly. "You need me? That's amusing, considering a year ago you said I lacked leadership material, only valued for technical skills." Dad had the gall to look annoyed. "Business decisions were made, but now we must move forward. If you come back, we can rebuild Caldwell Enterprises together." There it was again, control. They didn't want me, they wanted to own me. "And what position are you offering?" I inquired, playing along. Dad straightened as if to finalize the deal. "You'd be second in command, right beneath Emily." I blinked, then laughed aloud. Emily flushed. "Lauren, grow up. You develop some software, fine, but that doesn't mean you know how to run a business at our level." I halted my laughter, leaning in and stealing my voice. "Emily, my company is valued at $500 million, while yours teeters on bankruptcy. Explain to me again, which one of us doesn't know how to run a company?" Silence, complete and gratifying. Attempting to regain ground, Dad cleared his throat. "Lauren, please." That single word, please, from the same man who had dismissed, patronized, and treated me like an inadequate employee, rather than his own daughter, now pleading, was a turning point, offering an unmatched sense of peace. "No," I repeated firmly, "I don't want or need Caldwell Enterprises. You needed me and discarded me. Your choice. Now live with it." Frustration seeped into his response. "You're going to let your own family fall?" Calmly, I replied, "I didn't allow anything. This company was doomed the moment you placed Emily at the helm." Emily shot up from her seat, her face flushed with anger. "You're just bitter," she accused. "You've always envied me." I responded with a slow, hardly bothered smile. "Jealous? I have no need for jealousy, Emily. I've already achieved what you wanted." I stood, smoothing my blouse. "If you'll excuse me, I have a successful company to run." My father left, enveloped in agitated silence, Emily storming behind him but not before turning. "I hope you're happy, Lauren." Meeting her gaze with absolute tranquility, I answered, "I am." She exited without another word. As the doors closed behind them, I leaned back and exhaled deeply, finally allowing a smile. For the first time, I truly felt free. Once they left, the realization settled in, a futile attempt to offer half-hearted apologies and assume I'd rescue their failing enterprise. They had no grasp of who I'd become. Observing their discomfort was satisfying, but I knew this was far from over. Caldwell Enterprises was sinking, destined to drag down everything in its wake. The pressing question was, would I let it happen? 3 days later, the news was confirmed. Caldwell Enterprises had declared bankruptcy. Business magazines, online forums, even national headlines were buzzing. Former industry titan, Caldwell Enterprises, had dramatically collapsed overnight due to reckless leadership decisions. The downfall of a $300 million company was attributed to internal greed and family politics. Interestingly, every article credited the company's previous successes to me. emphasizing that Caldwell Enterprises had initially survived a prior near-collapse only because of the software I developed. Once I departed, its downfall was inevitable. During a meeting, my assistant Claire gently knocked on my office door. "Lauren, you might want to take a look at this," she said, handing me a printed article. Scanning the page, a hint of a smile touched my lips as I reached the last paragraph. Caldwell Enterprises was being liquidated. Everything was for sale: the headquarters, remaining assets, and even the prestigious Caldwell name. Desperate, Dad had burdened the company with unsustainable loans, and now the banks were poised to seize control. I realized I had the chance to buy it all. The irony was almost too perfect. While reflecting in my luxurious penthouse overlooking the city that evening, I contemplated my desires. I had spent substantial energy proving my worth, fighting against those who had dismissed, betrayed, or belittled me. Now, with victory in hand, was there a need for further retribution? I recalled the moment a year ago when my father disdainfully tossed $50 at me, as though I were a waitress, as though my value were so trivial. In that instant, my decision crystallized. The following morning, I acted decisively. Avoiding intermediaries, I directly contacted the bankruptcy attorney managing Caldwell's liquidation. "I'd like to submit a direct bid on all Caldwell Enterprises assets," I stated, including the name. The attorney hesitated. "Miss Caldwell, do you understand the implications?" I smiled. "I fully understand." A week later, I found myself in the same boardroom where my father had once reigned unchallenged. Now, I held sovereignty. The signed documents lay before me, a black and gold pen poised on the final contract. With a single signature, Caldwell Enterprises would be mine. The empire my father had barred me from leading was finally in my grasp. Opposite me sat Emily and Dad, both appearing crestfallen. Dad seemed to have aged a decade in the past week. Emily refused to meet my eyes. "I can't believe you're actually doing this," she muttered. "Doing what?" I queried. "Acquiring a defunct company? A name stripped of its value." Her scowl deepened. "You know what I mean." Leaning back, I tapped my fingers on the polished table. "Amusingly, a year prior, you doubted my capability to run a company. Now you're suggesting I wield too much influence." Dad inhaled sharply. "Lauren, just sign the damn papers." I paused with the pen in hand, then returned the documents. Dad blinked in confusion. Emily frowned. "What's this?" Dad asked, perplexed. "A counteroffer," I replied simply. Perusing the first page, his eyes widened. "You're dissolving Caldwell Enterprises?" Emily gasped. "You're shutting it down?" I confirmed with a smile. "Exactly." My father's face reddened with rage. "Why on earth would you do that?" Leaning forward, I spoke calmly. "Because I don't need Caldwell Enterprises, never did. But there's something I do want." I pointed to a specific clause on the final page. Dad's gaze followed my finger. His breath halted. Emily snatched the document, her voice trembling as she read aloud. "All rights to the Caldwell name, patents, and intellectual property will be absorbed by Nova Systems and permanently retired." Fury flared in her eyes. "You're not just buying it, you're annihilating it." I met her fierce gaze unwaveringly. Yes. Caldwell Enterprises would never rise again. It would vanish, just as they had once tried to make me vanish. Dad clenched his jaw. "You're just retaliating against us." "No," I corrected. "I'm doing this because some things deserve to end." With that, I signed. And with a single stroke, it was over. The Caldwell era had ended. In its place, Nova Systems soared, unopposed by my father's faltered empire. We expanded rapidly, seizing exclusive contracts once held by Caldwell Enterprises. Their legacy was erased. Mine was just beginning to take shape. 3 months later, a letter arrived with no return address, containing a simple handwritten note. "Lauren, I don't expect forgiveness, but I hope one day you'll understand, Dad." I stared at it briefly, then discarded it without a second thought. As the flames devoured the final remains of Caldwell Enterprises in the fireplace, a sense of triumph enveloped me. I had achieved total victory. 3 months had elapsed since I obliterated Caldwell Enterprises from being, since signing that ultimate document ensuring their name's eternal dormancy. 3 months since my father and sister had left the boardroom empty-handed. Yet, it was only now that serenity embraced me for the first time since the saga commenced. Nova Systems flourished in the absence of Caldwell Enterprises competition. We aggressively expanded, claiming every significant client that once embodied my father's pride. A revenue of $500 million, 62% market dominance, and an unchallenged position as the industry leader stood as the cold, hard numbers. However, the true gratification didn't stem from mere figures. Satisfaction brewed from walking through my office each morning, witnessing a company grounded in merit, witnessing employees chosen for their skills and not because of nepotism, seeing a company I constructed without requiring my family's approval. Yet, despite my eagerness to forge ahead, the past had a peculiar way of lingering, notably when I received an invitation. This unmarked envelope held a plain cream card with exquisite gold lettering, the annual Caldwell Family Gala. I had nearly forgotten its existence. Dominated by my parents back when they wielded power, this was the industry's most exclusive affair. This year, someone else hosted it, having acquired their mansion at an auction post-bankruptcy. The invitation was merely a formality, likely sent by someone unaware of my history with the Caldwells. Receiving it by accident, I felt compelled not to discard it. I chose to attend, not to prove anything or seek revenge, but to conclude this chapter once and for all. On the gala night, I arrived adorned in a sleek, custom-tailored black gown, exuding the calm assurance of a woman with nothing left to justify. The event retained its opulence, with shimmering chandeliers, sophisticated music, and affluent elites sipping champagne, oblivious to their lack of control over the world. However, this time, I was the most formidable individual there, and everyone knew it. As I made my entrance, whispers trailed me. "Is that Lauren Caldwell?" "No, she now leads Nova Systems. Didn't she dismantle her father's company?" I paid them no mind. I wasn't there for them. Then I spotted them, my father and sister. No longer the focal point, they weren't encircled by influential executives discussing million-dollar ventures. Instead, they stood on the sidelines, a mere shadow of their former selves. My father appeared smaller, his erstwhile commanding aura displaced by an unfamiliar emotion, regret. In contrast, Emily held her head high, yet the cracks in her facade were conspicuous. Her grip on the champagne glass stem was tense. Her gaze flitted towards me, then away. For the first time, I was the one wielding power, and they were aware. As I approached them, my heels echoed on the polished floor. Emily tensed, my father glanced my way, and for a fleeting moment, something flashed in his eyes, not anger, nor resentment, but defeat. "Lauren," he addressed me, his voice subdued beyond anything I'd previously heard. "Dad," I replied, inclining my head slightly. A prolonged silence ensued until he released a resigned sigh. "I presume this is when you gloat." I responded with a faint smile. "No, Dad, this is the moment I say goodbye." Emily's eyes blinked, questioning. "I didn't come to throw this in your faces," I continued. "I didn't come to dredge up everything you lost, frankly, because it's not my concern anymore." Discarding my drink onto a passing tray, I locked eyes with my father for a final time. "I spent years striving for your acceptance, striving to prove my worth." I exhaled deeply. "However, I no longer seek that." Turning towards Emily, "And I don't hate you, never did, I simply pity you," I stated. Her expression stiffened, but I persisted. "Unlike you, I didn't have to steal power. I built my own." Her lips parted without words forming, as for the first time, she had nothing to say. Offering them one last glance, I moved away, not from vengeance or anger, but because, finally, I was liberated. Departing the gala without a backward glance or the need to demonstrate, I realized this saga was never about revenge. It was about embracing my true self. As I entered my car, returning to the company, legacy, and future that solely belonged to me, a smile graced my face. This wasn't the close of my story. It was merely the beginning.